Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are doing a deck tech for Aloy, Savior of Meridian. She is a 3/5 human warrior with vigilance and reach, and says whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, discover X, where X is the greatest power among them. So this is some discovering artifact creatures. So why play Aloy? Because there's so many ways to build the deck, right? You can go heavy on artifact creatures. We can kind of scale up like we did. You can do like +1/+1 counters on artifact creatures. There's so many ways you can build the deck, and it's so versatile. You really can't go wrong. Also, discovering Evil to the Power is kind of nuts because it's so scalable. Like, again, like if we start off with like a 3-something attacking, we discover 3, we either play a free card or we draw a card functionally. Or we're attacking for like 8 and then we discover something that's like 8 or whatever. So like the more the game progresses, the higher our power is going to be, so the higher hits we can get for free. And the free value every single turn is so nice. At the very worst, we're just drawing a card, which really only happens if we get like an inopportune instant or something. But at the very best, we're getting like big, like stinky 8/8s into play, which is great. So the game plan is we don't really need her to win because we're just artifacts at the end of the day. Like, we have a bunch of artifact creatures in value. Like, we'll get the job done even like if she dies like 5 times. Early game, we just want to get down rampant value. And mid game, we want to play her and swing out. Really, I mean, we can win without her, but the whole deck is based on, like, we're going to attack and we're going to get free value off the artifact creatures. Late game, we just want to attack with massive artifacts and just get a bunch of free value, free casts, free draws, and things like that. So, channel and deck stuff. The deck is 522 at the making of the video. I always say it. I have Ancient Tomb in here. I'll talk about Ancient Tomb in like half an hour or whenever this video goes to an end. But like, cut Ancient Tomb, save $100, and it's only like 400 something. But if you do want to spend like 500 bucks, get the card you need right from the link down below. And if you want to help the channel grow and all that cool stuff, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Going into it, the one and only Planeswalker we have is Ugin, Eye of the Storms. Really because, well, when we cast him, exile up to 1 permanent that's 1 or more colors, right? Sounds good to me. Whenever we cast a colorless spell, exile up to target permanent that is 1 or more colors. So we cast him, we get a free exile. We're artifacts, so a lot of our guys, and we just have a lot of colorless spells, so just getting free exile just from casting our stuff is really, really good. And then on top of the exile removal, he hits the field, right? Gain 3 life and draw a card for a plus, not too shabby. In a weird roundabout way, we can +0 him to kind of only make him 4 mana the turn we like play him if we really need to, but we're probably like not doing that. We're probably just plussing him and then drawing a card, or we're getting mana. Really, the exile static is what we want from him. We can ult him, search our deck for any number of colorless non-lands and exile him, put him into play, right? Cast him. We could. That's not too bad. That's actually insanely good. But no one's going to let that happen. Like, let's be brass tacks, very realistic. No one's going to let Ugin resolve. And if he does, you win the game. But people are going to try to prevent you from doing that. That's kind of the whole point of the game. But again, +3ing, drawing cards, and exiling, that's what we want. Going into creatures, we have Ancient Stone Idol, and Ancient Stone Idol is such a great example of kind of cards like that we have in the deck. Ancient Stone Idol is a 10/10, right? A 10 for 12/12. Flash, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. It is trample, and then when he dies, we make a 6/12 with trample. I really like the idea of, right, an opponent attacking us and having this guy heavily reduced, or we full swinging and then having this guy heavily reduced, right? All we care about is like reducing stuff. So we flash this dude in, and now on the very cheap, we have an attacking trample 12/12, which is going to discover 12 for us, which is pretty cool. Blightsteel Colossus is the OG Big Stink. He's trample, infect, 11/11. That's also indestructible. If he connects, you die. That's kind of how he reads. And then if he would die or be put in your graveyard from anywhere, just shuffle it into our deck instead. So he's like, you kind of got to exile him to get rid of him. Other than that, he's just going to keep coming on back. But ideally, like, hey, Ancient Stone Idol is something we could flip into a Blightsteel, which is very cool. Kinetic Spider, flying 4/4. Whenever a non-token artifact creature or vehicle, we don't have any vehicles, enters the battlefield, we draw a card. So, I mean, we're an artifact deck. Whenever an artifact enters, draw a card. Sounds good to me. We have Chameleon, Master of Disguise. One of the ways I saw you could build this deck is kind of by making a lot of clones of Aloy, right? So we can have Chameleon enter the battlefield as a copy of Aloy, and then when we attack, we'll get 2 of those kind of discover triggers. So is it good? Like, we could go more in on it, but I just wanted to add the 1 card because, one, it's always nice to splash something, and really just to share the idea of, like, you can have multiple copies of Aloy that, like, will do multiple things for you. Chief of the Foundry is just a simple artifact lord, so even, like, when you attack, like, your guys are discovering 1 more. We're probably not attacked with Chief of the Foundry that much. Cityscape Leveler, when we cast it, and again, when you discover, you cast. When you cast it, and whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent, and they get a tapped Power Stone. And it has Unearth. Ideally, we don't want to unearth it. We just want to cast it and keep attacking forever, discovering X, or discovering 8, rather, off Cityscape Leveler, and blowing up our opponent's stuff. And they can have Power Stones. It doesn't really do much for them. Crypto Thrall, just to give our other artifact creatures hexproof. Cybermen's Squadron is very good too because it gives our non-legendary creatures you control Myriad. Now imagine if we attack with a Blightsteel and now all of our opponents have a Blightsteel coming at them. Myriad's kind of cool when you think about it. Darksteel Colossus is another big dude. I just like the idea of, like, when he comes into play, he sticks. Like, can we cascade into him or discover into him? Probably not so easy, but we're in green and blue, so we have a lot of ramp options and just, like, land stuff in general. So he's not too impossible to get out, and then if, like, he would die, you know, shuffle him back in. Diamond Weapon is another one. It costs, like, ideally, we're either discovering this or we're having, like, a reduced cost. Like, the reduced cost of, like, let's say we even have, like, 3 cards in our graveyard. Like, cool, 9 minus 3, 6. Like, we have a 6/6, sorry, a 6 mana 8/8 with reach that is immune to all combat damage, which is great because we attack with them, no worry of how our opponents block, and now we discover 8. Emissary Escort is also really, really cool in this deck because it gets plus X plus O, where X is the greatest mana value among our other artifacts. So when we're trying to cheese things in, like Diamond Weapon for cheap, or like Ancient Stone Idol that have these massive CMCs, like, this guy is going to be like a 2 mana, like 9/4 or whatever. That's going to get us these big discover triggers. Emery, Lurker of the Lock, always costs 1 mana. When she enters, mill 4, and then we can just choose a target artifact card from our graveyard and cast it this turn. So it's just nice, good reanimation from our grave in a way. We have Ethereum Sculptor as a cost reducer, we have Foundry Inspector as a cost reducer, and Iron Spider is not a cost reducer, but Iron Spider does put a 1/1 counter on each artifact creature we control, so that does scale up, and then we can also remove 2 1/1 counters from among artifact creatures we control to draw a card. So I really like him. I actually did a whole deck tech for this dude, so check that out if you guys want. I think he's a cool commander. But we attack with him, he has Vigilance, and then, like, before damage, we then tap him to put a 1/1 counter on him and the rest of the team, which is good because it beefs him up and it beefs the whole other team up, and we beef the whole team up. Now we can discover more. You guys get the idea. And in a pinch, we can draw cards. Kappa Cannoneer is almost free every single time. Not really, but he never costs 6 because he has Improvise. And Ward 4, which really might as well just say Hexproof. When he or another creature or an artifact enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on him, so he enters as a 5/5 and he can't be blocked. So whenever any artifact creature enters, he can't be blocked and he gets 1 bigger. That's literally insane. He's going to get massive. He has Hexproof for all intents and purposes, and he costs like 2 mana. That's a crazy card. Karn Legacy Reforged, power and toughness equal to the greatest mana value among our other artifacts, which kind of has that whole Emissary Escort idea of, like, we'll get, you know, we have high CMCs for like free, like Kappa Cannoneer is going to cost like 2 or whatever. But anyway, at the beginning of your upkeep, get a colorless for each artifact you control, and that doesn't go away as steps and phases. And so kind of we just get a ton of mana just to cast our bigger things on our upkeep. And his power toughness at the very worst is a 5/5 or it gets bigger. Liberator Urza's Battlethopter is flash flying 1/2. We can cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash, which is basically our whole deck. And whenever we cast a spell, if the mana spent to cast that spell is greater than its power, we just put a 1/1 counter, so he kind of scales up a little bit, which is really nice. But ultimately, flashy artifacts, really good. Master of Ethereum, again, he's just like a big dude, right? Power and toughness, equal number of artifacts we control, so at the very worst, he's a 1/1, and he's an artifact lord. But ideally, he scales up a lot bigger. Metalwork Colossus never costs 11, but he is a big 10/10, and we can always reanimate him if we need to. Meteor Golem is just a really nice, short, sweet, to the point, like, enter the battlefield, destroy something our opponent has in colorless, and again, if we're casting him for free or whatever, that's also really nice. Mycosynth Golem costs 11 for a 4/5, and that's a terrible rate, but he has affinity for artifacts, so he's practically free, and artifact creature spells you play have affinity for artifacts, so it's going to make all of our other guys free. Ornithopter of Paradise is just a flying mana dork that's an artifact. It's good, you know, and a lot of the time, like early game, this is the kind of things that we're going to be discovering into, right? Like late game, we want to get big hits, but early game, we're going to see a lot of these like smaller dudes. Even Padim we'll see. He gives our artifacts hexproof, and ideally, he draws us an extra card at the start of our turn. So pretty solid either way. We have Palladium Myrrh, really just to tap for 2 mana. It's good. We just want the ramp. Phyrexian Metamorph enters the battlefield as a copy of our best artifact on the battlefield, or really the best artifact or creature in general on the battlefield. And he costs 3 mana, which is really cool. Platinum Aperion, our life total can't change. That's it. Our life total can't change. We can't lose any life. We can't gain any life. It just is. You know, time is such an insignificant force to him. I love him. He's so cool. Research Thief is really nice. Flash flying. Whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, just draw a card. Something we can flash in, you know. And the really cool thing about Aloy is the discoverability is on attack, right? So we can attack, rip into Research Thief, and then draw a card because it's connected. Sai is really just there to make us a ton of 1/1 Thopters. They're good for blocking. They're good for drawing cards. You know, they count for our artifact count. You guys get the idea. Shardless Agent, I think, is really silly because we can discover into Shardless Agent and then cascade into something else. So it's kind of like a 3-for-1 when we discover into it. Solemn Simulacrum, he's going to get us a basic. He's going to ramp, and then when he dies, we draw a card. He's a trooper. He does his job. Steel Hellkite, I do like the idea of, because we can pump it as we do need to. So, like, if we want to make a massive, we can. But we can pay X and destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X whose controller was dealt damage by Steel Hellkite this turn, and we can only do it once a turn. So, if our opponent has a lot of 2-drops, we can pay 2 mana to destroy all of their 2-drops. If they have a lot of tokens, we can pay 0 to destroy all of their tokens. And we can scale them up if we want them to be big. Steel Overseer is basically a worse Iron Spider that costs 1 less. That's pretty much it. Thought Monitor should always cost about 1 or 2 mana for a flying 2/2 that draws us 2 cards. Traxos Scourge of Krug, I like the idea of, right? So 4 mana, let's say in a complete vacuum, we play him on turn 4. He's a trample 7/7 that enters tapped. When we cast a historic spell, which is artifacts and legendaries, we untap him. So we play him turn 4, he enters tapped, we play Aloy, he then untaps, we attack, we discover 7 for a trample 7/7. Sounds good to me. Urza Lord High Artificer, when he's going to enter, he's going to make a big dude. All of our artifacts are now Mox Sapphires, we can just tap them for blue. And then we can pay 5 mana to shuffle up our deck, exile the top card, and cast it without paying its mana cost. Or let me rephrase that. We can play it without paying its mana cost. So we can hit lands on that if it makes sense. But otherwise, we're casting. Verduous Gearhulk. When he enters, distribute 4 1/1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. At the very worst, it is a 5 mana 8/8 with trample, which is pretty solid. Or we just make our bigger creature even bigger and we discover more that way. Wormcoil Engine, Death Touch, Lifelink, 6/6. When it dies, make a 3/3 Lifelink, make a 3/3 Death Touch. Pretty good. Like, those are good things. Like, again, like, and imagine we're just casting these things for free just because we attacked. Like, it's just good value. Going into sorceries, we have Fabricate to search our deck for an artifact, put it in our hand, short, sweet, to the point. Farseek is really just to get, like, a duel, like a breeding pool or hedge maze, or just a little bit of, like, ramp. We can't get a forest, like, we're either going to have to get a raw basic island or, like, one of the dual lands that we can fetch. One with the Machine, I do like the idea of just drawing cards equal to the highest mana value among artifacts, because we have cards, you know, like Ancient Stone Idol and all that good stuff that really have a reduced artifact cost. Nature's Lore and 3 Visits are the exact same card. Search your deck for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield. We're either getting a basic forest and we're just untapped, or we're getting a Shockland, or we're getting the Hedge Maze, the Surveil land that will enter tapped and just surveil us a card. So really whatever we need. Thoughtcast costs 1 mana to draw 2 cards. That's almost always how it should read. Temporal Manipulation and Time Warp. I did see a couple decks build Aloy as extra turns because, well, you can't really get a lot of extra combats in Simic, but you can get a lot of extra turns in Simic, which is really extra combats. So running these kinds of things are nice because they're low costed enough, like 5 to just rip us into another turn is not too shabby. Like we can just get an extra turn on our combat phase, which is really nice. So I think they're worth mentioning. Going into instance, it's really nothing too crazy. We have Beast Within to get rid of something we don't like, Counterspell to counter a spell, Desynchronization to return each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand, so anything that's not an artifact, legendary, or saga. And then we have Heroic Intervention to give everything we have hexproof and indestructible, and Mana Drain to counter a spell and to give us a lot of mana. The reason I have Mana Drain in this deck is because we do have kind of high CMCs, so like it's a better counter spell that will just give us a bunch of mana. I know it's costly, but whatever. I do want to say about all of these instants, the nice thing that Discover has over Cascade is Cascade says you either cast it or it goes on the bottom of your deck. Discover says you either cast it or you put it in your hand. So when we get like these few instants, like on the chance we hit them, they're just going to our hand. Like we're not going to cast them. Going into artifacts, believe it or not, we don't have that many because all of our artifacts are the creatures. We have Arcane Signet because it taps for any color, just ramp, Chamil to make our spells uncounterable, and also just to stick to the theme of discovering 5, or really just discovering in general, but still, our spells can't be countered and we get free spells every turn. Sounds good. Remember how I just said you don't get a lot of extra combats in colorless? What if I told you Genji Glove gives us extra combats, sorry, not colors, in Simic, but he gives us it in colorless anyway. Yeah, equipped creature has double strike when equipped creature attacks. If it's the first combat, untap it, there's an additional combat step. So now we're kind of hitting Aloy's trigger twice. We have Lightning Greaves. We're just going to put it on Aloy. Honestly, she's a good reacher because she's a 3/5 with reach and vigilance. We're probably not attacking because we don't want her to die, so just putting the Greaves on her is nice. Portal to Phyrexia is another big stink we'd like to hit into to make each of our opponents sack 3 creatures and we get a free reanimate on each of our turn. Sculpting Steel, hey, we have something, the best artifact on the battlefield. Now we have another one. Simulacrum Synthesizer is probably almost always going to be the best artifact on the battlefield. It enters Scry 2, tremendous. When another artifact with a mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield, you make a construct that's +X, where X is the number of artifacts we control. So at the very worst, it's a 1/1, and then you have 2 2/2s and 3 3/3s, and you guys get the idea. Soul Ring is Soul Ring Strionic Resonator just to pay 2 mana with our Soul Ring to then just copy the Discover ability off of Aloy, so now we get 2 Discovers. And then we have finally Uthros Researchcraft. I really like the idea of it because we're not really going to be attacking with all of our creatures every combat. Like we're going to have a lot of like utility creatures, even like Aloy. Like we're not really going to be attacking with Aloy, even though she has vigilance. Like she's really a blocker and just to hang out. But we can tap Aloy right away to crew up Researchcraft for 3. Really all we need is 3 to get this thing going. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card, and then put a charge counter on it. So that's just a nuts ability. Cast an artifact, draw a card. Sounds good to me. Discover is cast. And then again, like, we'll scale up eventually to have it be a massive, like, something, flying something 8, which could very legitly be a good attacker for Aloy. Going into lands, it's honestly not that crazy. Academy Ruins, just to pay 2 mana, put an artifact card from our deck on top, from our grave on top of our deck, so we just know what we're drawing. Ancient Tomb I have in the deck because we are a higher CMC deck, but it's also a lot of colorless stuff, so just being able to ramp with just 1 land is really nice. Archway of Innovation, just to make one of our big stinky spells cost way less, just because we can improvise like our little tokens out or whatever. Breeding Pool is Breeding Pool, it's fetchable. Buried Ruin, we can just tap and sack to return an artifact from our grave to our hand. It's nice in a pinch. Command Beacon, Aloy costs 5. If she dies like once, she costs 7. If she dies twice, she costs 9, and that's probably the cutoff for her. So Command Beacon gives us like a freebie back to 5. Darksteel Citadel is an indestructible artifact land. It's just tap for a colorless. The thing that's nice about these artifact lands is because we have so many like effects in our deck that are like blank 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 equal to the number of artifacts you control, or do something equal to the number of artifacts, or improvise, or this thing costs less for each artifact you control, stuff like that, right? Creature gets +X for artifacts, whatever, you guys get the idea. So just having them be free stapled onto a land is nice. Dreamroot Cascade ideally always enters untapped, just can't play it turn 1 or 2. Hedge Maze is great because it's fetchable with 3 visits in Nature's Lore and Farseek. And it just enters, surveils. It's great, just a little bit of card advantage. We have Hinterland Harbor because we have a lot of basics. It's always going to enter untapped. Inventor's Fair is going to gain us a life every turn, and in a pinch we can pay 4 and sack it to search our deck for an artifact and just put it into our hand. Reliquary Tower gives us no max hand size, which is really nice. Seed of the Synod is another artifact land. Tangle Pool Bridge is also another one that's indestructible, which is really nice. Mycosynth Garden isn't an artifact land, it's a sphere. However, it can be an artifact land if we use its X cost. You know, it actually won't make it a land. But I don't know. I know it wouldn't make a land because it just becomes a copy of whatever. But either way, right, you guys get the idea. It can clone one of our cool utility dudes. We have Tree of Tales as the final artifact land, and then other than basic, we have Uthros Titanic God Core. It's really not that hard to station 12 in this deck because, again, we have so many dudes that aren't, like, attacking, and even late game, like, we'll just play, like, an Ancient Stone Idol and tap it, and now we have, like, a Tolarian Academy. Sounds pretty good to me, right? Why not? But going into basics, we have 9 forests and 10 islands. I mean, you can go a bit nuts with the amount of, like, non-basics in this deck, but honestly, like, there's really not going to be too many non-basics that are going to really amplify the deck up too much. But that's all I got for you guys. Get the cards you need from the link right down below, and as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time.